Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday, 10th of August, 2021, 7:15 here in Ireland. And today I have a pleasure because we are in family. I have my twin brother here with different mom, So Dan is accept our invitation and will give us his thoughts about life changing, and it's amazing to have Dan here. He's a member of SSI, Irish Spiritist Federation. He just lives in a different country. That's it. That's a simple minor thing.
Minor details.
Yeah, exactly. But he's here with us anytime. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Dan, with us. Thank you. It's been a while since you don't appear here. I guess you were busy.
Look at that. It has been, it feels like it's been a long time because I always enjoy being with you. But I'm trying to do some soul searching, trying to figure out what is it that I want to be when I grow old. Or up, I should say, right? Because growing old is mandatory. Growing up is optional. But I've also had a chance to take a vacation with my family, which was really, really great. But I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation again. It's always a pleasure to be with you, even if we're not doing that in person just yet.
Yes. Well, with meeting in person, looks like it's a faraway plan so far, Anyway. But that's
Keep positive.
Thankfully, could be worse without the internet.
We could.
Yeah?
You certainly could, right? If this pandemic had happened 10 years ago, it would have been a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly. So while we're talking here, I can see a lot of people joining us. We have Leah from Sweden, Roberta from Ireland, Rihanna from South Africa. So,
hey, Rihanna.
So we are traveling to all these countries, my friend. And of course, Don from hot Chicago. Yeah,
Don. Always great to see you, Don, even if virtually.
Exactly. Yeah, we need to. But this pandemic needs to give us a break, and I need to meet all these people in person. Next time I go to US, I need to do a stopover in Chicago, so stopover in Texas. So a lot of stopovers. Leah saying, I'm kind of glad for the pandemic because I'd be alone without you all.
You have us, Leah. You have us, whether you like it or not.
and for sure, these lives, perhaps these lives will never stop because the results we are reaping from these, it's amazing here. We are reaching a lot of people in different countries, spreading the spiritism in English. That's one of the best things that's happened to us. Dan is one of the guys who support this, who fighting with this for many years, and finally we found out because believe or not, I think the last time I was with Dan in person, we were discussing this. Oh, what are you gonna do to spread the spiritism in English? Oh, I don't know. Oh, we can do this. Yeah, let's do that. And suddenly, the pandemic resolved this.
Funny how it happens, right? Yeah. So it's been very hard on many different people, but we also can look at the positive things and the lessons that we have learned from it, right? And I think that's definitely one of those. And I'm excited to be able to be with you guys virtually because, it's great to see good people. It really is.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's shall we start? We have a lot of people here already. So let me do the initial prayer and ask to everyone to open your heart, lift up your thoughts towards Jesus, towards our mentors, asking them to enlighten ourselves, enlighten Dan today in his talk. May his words reach you and help you somehow. For those brothers and sisters who will watch this live in the future, may touch them. And once again, thank you for all the support, for all difficulties we need to overcome every day. May this prayer also reach out our friends who are sick, who are thinking about suicide, who are with depression, anxiety. So be it. Amen.
So be it.
Okay. So today, Dan will talk about change our lives using the prodigal son parable. It's amazing to have this talk. So I want to reinforce here our road of Damascus is it's out there. So it's another life changing. So please, if you didn't read it, read. I highly recommend you to download in Kindle or buy the book in paper. It's every single chapter you see something has slapped your face. Like I can hear Dan say, "Hey, Stevan, watch this out." But anyway, Dan, our friends is all yours. Break a leg.
Thank you, my friend, my brother from another mother.
Yeah.
So that's thank you so much also for sharing a little bit about the book and making space for that. I really appreciate it. I think that the idea here really is to talk about change, right? We had just briefly mentioned that it's been an incredible 2 years that the pandemic has definitely changed the way we look at the world and ourselves. And it's almost if by design, right? That we needed a break. We needed a jolt, somebody to shake us up and say, hey, or something to shake us up and say, hey, we need to think about things differently. And while we are thinking about all this COVID, this pandemic, I know that many of us have been thinking about how do we go back to normal? How do we go back to life as it was before? How do we go back home? And in talking and thinking about that with different people, the idea of revisiting this wonderful story from the New Testament that Jesus gave us 2,000 years ago, the parable of the prodigal son, sometimes also known as the parable of the lost son, came to mind because one of the wonderful things that I think these stories give us is a way to understand our lives, even if they have happened 2,000 years ago. They give us a framework to think about things in general, and they're very, very symbolic. So as I sat down to think about this, I wonder if there aren't some lessons that we can take away from this parable that's applicable to this moment in our lives, both personally and collectively. That is, I wonder if there are things that we can pick for ourselves from this wonderful story to help us navigate this return to normalcy or to return to something greater, to something better. And also, I wonder if there are also implications there for us as a society in general and how we behave, how do we act, how do we set our lives, and the kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that we will have some time today and some patience on your end chat briefly about this parable and spend some time as well translating it to our everyday life. And I love that we get to do this with so many wonderful people. I see Vanderlei, I see Leah, Rihanna, Dawn. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. And if you guys, if you're watching this after the fact, as I know sometimes people don't like to watch this live or can't, please also feel our embrace. We are really glad to have you here, to have some time to talk about things that we think are important to the Spirit in general. And I hope you have a great day as well. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about the parable of the lost son, right? And this is an interesting parable because we find it on the Gospel of Luke in chapter 15, verses 11 to 32. It is a little bit of a longer parable. Generally, we get things a little bit more chopped up, a little bit simpler. But this is nice because it gives us an understanding of the whole story and give us an opportunity to kind of dive deeper as well. The interesting thing here, I should also tell you, and I get out of the way here a little bit, the translation we're using today is the New Living Translation, but you can pick it up anywhere. But this is found only in the Gospel of Luke. And the really interesting thing about this parable, and if you want to put it in perspective just really quickly, is that in chapter 15 of the Gospel of Luke, this is the third story, the third parable, and all of them have to do with finding something that has been lost. So we have the parable of the lost sheep. You might remember that. There's a lost money. And now Luke gives us the parable of the lost son. So clearly this chapter, it's really about finding things that have been lost or returning them to how things should be, which I find very interesting for the times that we live in, right? So if that's okay with you, what I want to do today is simple. I want to read the parable with you. I want to talk briefly about the story, about what the parable is, and then we're going to peel some of the layers and look at the symbolism to see how that applies to us, right? Feel free to pop questions or comments as we go. We'll do our best to tackle them as we dive in here together. But if we don't do it while I am talking, we'll make sure that we have time at the end to talk about this. There's a lot of content here. We can go in many different directions, but we're going to just focus on a couple of different things that I hope will be helpful to us, right? So chime in whenever you want to. All right. So let's dive in here a little bit. Let's read this parable together. And I'm going to put it on screen so you can follow with me, and then we can go back and understand what's going on. All right. So at verse 11, we see Luke saying, to illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. A man had two sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land. And there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his field to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. All right, so let's keep going here because there's more, right? When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am, dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to the servant, Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring on his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead and now has returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found." So the party began. And the story could end there, right, friends? But there's more. There's more. Let's look into this too. Meanwhile, the older son, the one that had been left behind, right, who hadn't stayed at the farm, was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house. And he asked one of the servants what was going on. "Your brother is back," he was told, "and your father has killed the fattened calf. We are celebrating because of his safe return." The older brother was angry and would not go into the party. His father came out of the party to talk to him and begged him, but he replied, "All these years I've slaved for you, and you never once refused to do a single thing you told me. And in all that time, you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf." His father said to him, "Look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found." All right, so that's an interesting story, right? And we can actually break it down a little bit to make sure that we understand what's happening in general in the story, the different parts, before we talked about it. So we know that he begins working at the farm. He starts his life at the farm. He's working at the farm. And then something incredible sort of happens. I don't know if you guys caught on this one, but he actually says, I don't want to be here anymore. Not only does he do that, but he also says, "I think I deserve more. So I want my father to give me my inheritance now, even though he's not dead yet." He basically turns to his dad and says, give me my inheritance now. I don't want to wait until you die. I want to enjoy it now, right? Which is, between us, I think, just all of us today, sort of a pretty rude and kind of a insensitive thing to do, right? You're basically telling to your father, I don't want to be here. I want to have the money that you would give me when you die. Give it to me now because it's mine. And surprisingly, the father does that. The father does give the money to him and separates his estate between the brothers before he's even dead. And then what happens next, right? He goes on a journey to a distant land. And in this distant land, he begins to enjoy life whichever way he can, right? He dates all the girls. He eats all the food. He parties. He does everything. And because he's not really paying attention, he spends all his money. And we also know what happens next, right? In that distant land, which is far away from the farm, something else happens. Hunger sets in. There is this famine going on, and all of a sudden he has nothing left, right? He doesn't have food anymore. He doesn't have money anymore, and he finds himself in trouble, and he tries to figure out what is he going to do. And he decides to convince a farmer to give him a job. The interesting piece here to me is that even when he hits bottom here, he doesn't decide to go back home just yet, does he? He decides to stay there and make it happen. If he can only get a job, he can go back to having that good life that he was hoping to maintain and that he just got careless about. But in the process of getting the job, he begins to realize that things are not exactly as he expected. The job that he has been given is to feed the pigs. Well, if you remember your farm animals, you might remember that the pigs are not necessarily the most glamorous of all the animals, that they live oftentimes in our stories in dirt, and they eat everything that's left over. So he is not qualified, friends, to have any other job. He doesn't have tons of skills. He's been partying all along, and the only job that he can beg his way into is to do the lowliest of low jobs, which is to feed the pigs to feed the animals that are not as important and that were not considered clean. So he is at the bottom of the social ladder here. And he also understands that nobody in those lands is going to give him anything. He's hungry. He's so hungry that even the food that he's feeding the pigs sounds appetizing to him. Yet, the farmer or anybody else, they're not even going to give him that food. He's starving. He's hurting. He's sad. He is at the bottom of his life. And he comes into himself. There's a wonderful figure of speech. And he realizes, what am I doing here? How did I get here? I was at the farm, and at the farm, even those who work for my father, who was the boss, and I was part of the family, even the servants have way more than these people over here in this land. What am I doing here? I messed up. I need to go back, and I need to say to my father, I'm so sorry. I know that I have been very rude and senseless, but can you take me back? Don't take me back as a son. Take me back as a servant, because I know I need to make up for everything that I've done. And while he's on his way back, and here's where it gets really interesting, friends. While he's on his way back, his father sees him on the road. And that's just a beautiful moment, I think, in this parable, because the father has been looking for him all along. The only way that his father sees him as he is returning is because the father is looking down the road. He is waiting for his return. And when he sees him still a little bit at a distance, his father goes to him and helps him walk the way back. And here's a beautiful symbolism, again, between the many that we're going to talk about. But he walked all this way to this distant land, and now he has to make his way back. But the good news is, on the way back, we get some help. We get some company to walk the way back, so that our walk is made easier. And you can imagine how he was at this point in time, right? He is dirty, tired, he's ragged. He has been feeding the pigs in the dirt, in the mud. He's not necessarily the best smelling or looking fella right there in that moment in time. But his father hugs him. His son says, I'm so sorry. I've messed up. I know this. I feel it in my heart. Please don't take me back as a son, but take me back as a servant so I can show you that I have really learned. I want to work hard. I want to make this better. I made a mistake. And his father, who is always exceedingly kind, does two symbolic things here as well. Ask for some sandals and ask for a ring. And I think that symbolically we can talk briefly about this, because I think they're beautiful. They're sort of poetic. The ring, I think we all know that symbolism. That ring is the covenant, is a connection. It's saying, hey, I'm taking you back not as a servant, that you're part of my family. Here's a ring of commitment, that to know that you are welcome back as you were before. And the sandals. The sandals are also to emphasize that he's not a servant. Servants didn't wear sandals. Only those who were part of the family did at the time. And so here are the sandals for your tired feet, symbolizing that he's also back into the family, into the position that he had before. And it's a beautiful story. And they have a party. The father's so excited that they have been fattening a calf for a special moment. They break that calf out, right? They do a huge barbecue of sorts to make it into modern terms, invite tons of people. People are happy because he has returned, except for one person. Except for one person who is not happy that he has returned. And you know who that is, right? It is his brother. And we're going to talk a little bit about the brother as well. But I think that you have in there a story. And I think that you get this, right? I think that this is the breakdown of the story. We can understand what it looks like. He leaves home because he's working at the farm. He goes to this distant land. He has this hunger. He has to figure it out how to handle this. He feeds the pigs, finds a job, comes to his senses, and realizes he's got to go back. He returns, and then he's received by his father along the way, and then there's his brother to deal with. So far, so good, right? So hopefully this is no surprise to you. But I wanted to take some time to break that story down so that it becomes a little bit more vivid. Because in my head, at least, sometimes when we are talking about these old stories in the Bible, in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, they seem so foreign. They seem so distant. They seem like they're just little stories. But when we begin to think about it, they may be really powerful. They may be really interesting for us to consider. And so there's tons of symbolism here, right? There's very, very much a lot of symbolism here. And so I want to take some time to talk about these phases of the prodigal son, of the lost son, and connect the dots with you and see if there is a opportunity for us to apply that to our lives. So first I want to go to that symbolism of the farm, right? I think that we understand that the farm is where we start from. The farm is that place in which we are working. It's our origin. And so when we think about leaving the farm for a distant land, we are naturally talking about leaving our origins, leaving our original place to go somewhere. And it's no surprise, if you think about it, that the parable calls it a distant land. So when our friend here, our son, the prodigal son, and we can go back here and look at this better if it helps. When he goes back and when he's traveling and trying to find his new self, he has gone a long way from home. The symbolism here is that he has really moved away from where he was, from his values, from his understanding, from his spiritual essence, so to speak. And he just wants to enjoy physical material life. That's why he asks for the check. He asks his dad to say, hey, give me all my riches. He feels so entitled at this point that he has the temerity to say to his dad, I'm not going to even wait until you're dead. I want my money now. He thinks that's his money. He's so entitled that he thinks it's his, even though it's not his. It's his dad. And he goes to this distant land. It is no surprise, my friends, that in this distant land, there are lots of things going on, right? There are a lot of different partying going on and so forth. It's no surprise either that he squanders all his things and he feels really hungry. And this hunger is a symbolic hunger as well, because it tells us that if we are only going to pay attention to the values that this distant physical land urges us to party, to go out and date all the girls or boys, or and enjoy only the physical world and appeal only to your senses, eventually we are going to get a hunger of spirits. We're going to waste all these things. And when that happens, we are going to be faced with many different challenges. And so it's important for us to talk about that symbolism, because in many different ways, it's a really powerful reminder on the importance of us to reflect on our origin. So I wonder if in the middle of this pandemic, we have recognized the opportunities for growth that we have before us. Have we stopped to think about where we are coming from? How was the world before this pandemic? How was our upbringing? What were the lessons that we bring with us from our family, for instance, from the teachings that we have received or learned when we were younger, from the values that our parents try to share with us? Can we think a little bit about our farm, or where we started, our spiritual essence? And especially as we put a reincarnatory sense to it, can we understand that the circumstances in which we came into this world were the best ones for a specific kind of learning that we needed to do? Have we recognized that where we came from tells us a lot about the things that we need to struggle with and overcome in this lifetime? And I think this is important for us, especially during times of COVID, and we can talk a little bit about that as well. But the farm stands as a powerful symbolism for us to consider there. The second one we talked about briefly is the distant land. And when we think about this journey that he is doing from the farm for his origins to this distant land, we can also ask ourselves, how far are we from God and our spiritual essence too. In our lives, do we also make this trip? Do we also leave behind that which we find most spiritual or most settling in many different ways to go into the world and try to win our fortune? Do we lose sight at times of our spiritual essence, as we were talking, and focus only on acquiring riches, on acquiring status, on satiating, so to speak, our senses? Are we so worried about just of things of the physical world that we lose sight of what really is important? Are we living in this distant land? And as a society as well, are we also living in this distant land? Have we lost sight of what really matters? Are we really just worried about what our paycheck looks like, or what our status looks like in society, what kind of car we drive, and what kind of material things we have? Have we lost our bearing a tiny little bit? I think that's a powerful reflection for us to consider as well there. We were going to go through these quickly because they could be conversations that last many weeks. But I think we want to kind of just show the beauty of this parable in general. And the third symbolism and the phase that we want to go here is this hunger that he goes to. Remember, when he squanders everything, all his money, and that's prodigal means, right? Spendthrift in many different ways. When he has spent everything, what is this hunger that plagues our hearts? What is this void that sometimes we feel in our souls, in our minds, in our hearts, and that we don't know what our purpose here is? What is this hunger that comes to us when we're looking for meaning and purpose? And more than ever, I think many people have been looking for that meaning and purpose even before the pandemic. We have apparently everything. Never have we had so many things in life, right? As a society, we have so much comfort in technology, yet we have not been able to quell this thirst for something inside of us. How can that be? How can that be? And why is that? Is it because we are in that distant land? Are we looking at the wrong things? Are we hoping that the wrong things are going to quench that thirst? Are we hoping that the new car, the new job, the many new relationships, the sex, the drugs is going to do it for us? It's going to really do it for us. And I think the answer we know is no. It might do it for a little bit, just like the prodigal son in the distant land, but eventually we get hunger, and we get hungry again, because we have been doing this and we've just been trying so hard to just fulfill our physical needs, and we realize that's not enough. And so that's an important realization as well. And the fourth stage of the prodigal son that also bears some reflection are the whole pigs thing, right? So why does this work not fulfill us? Why is it that the work that sometimes we're doing in our lives is not fulfilling us? It speaks to the hunger piece, right? I know so many people that before the pandemic and during the pandemic have also been thinking about whether they wanted to change jobs, whether they wanted to change places, because they were feeling that hunger and they didn't feel like the work that they were doing really mattered. In a way, it felt almost as if they were feeding the pigs. That is, they were just doing the work that takes care of physical needs, that puts some food on their table, barely, but it doesn't speak to their souls. And I wonder if many ways our work and our intentions and our energies have not also been focused to just fulfilling that which is sensual or physical or immediate, without thinking of the long-lasting things of the spirit. So why is it that the work that sometimes we're doing doesn't fulfill us? Is it because we're still feeling that hunger? It's because we're not aligned with what we truly want to do. And so that's a question for us to consider as well, that the prodigal son brings us. And then there is a beautiful moment here when he realizes that's no longer doing it for him. This moment of coming to self. And I think in many ways, we're all going through this too. When will we go back to our essence? When are we going to go back to the farm. And I think this is a pretty powerful analogy, especially now in the middle of the pandemic, because we have also been thinking about what to make of our lives, haven't we? Collectively, we have been talking about going back to how life was before, but the truth is, life wasn't that great to begin with either. That hunger that we felt, that the prodigal son felt, is not there just because we went through COVID. This doubt, these changes that we want to make in our lives, they're not just there because of COVID. They were there to begin with, and COVID just magnified them. So in many different ways, this whole experience that we had, this whole experiment that we had for the past 2 years, collectively, the whole world, is a calling for us to come back to ourselves, coming to our senses, and really think about, when are we going to go back to the farm? That is, when are we going to go back to where we started, our essence, and not exactly just to the world as it was before? Because if we just go back to the world like it was before, we would be no different than the prodigal son who tries to get a job to stay in that distant land, but it doesn't work. He gets that job and feeding the pigs and still does not fulfill him. So if we are just trying to go back to our life as it was pre-pandemic, maybe that's a lost opportunity. Maybe that's a missed opportunity to really think about, how can we move forward? How can we improve ourselves and those around us? How can I take care of that inner hunger that's within me, that I know it's there? Hey, and if you don't have that, that's great, good for you. But what I'm saying is that the world around us seems to be screaming for purpose, for meaning. And we seem to be looking at different places to get the satisfaction. And we're getting it in a way that it doesn't last, because we're so focused on the things from this distant land. We're so focused on the here and now. We're so focused on materialistic or physicality in general that we forget to go back to our origins, to forget that we are immortal spirits. When we forget, friends, that we are immortal spirits, everything else becomes a little bit harder, because we get trapped only in the world that we see. Yes, we have to go work. Yes, we have to go pay our bills. Yes, we have to pay our mortgages and take care of ourselves, and health insurance and car insurance and all those things. Yes to all of them. Yet, they are not the reason why we are here. And now we know this. We know this because we know about reincarnation. We know that we pre-exist this physical body, that in fact, this physical body is not who we are. It's just what we are in this moment in time. We had physical bodies that were different before. We will have physical bodies that are different, that will be different in next lives, because we will have them. And we know this because the spirits tell us, because we have seen people remembering past lives. We have this knowledge now, and yet we don't often act on it. And that's an important question for us to raise. How often do I think about myself as a spiritual being? How often do I consider myself to be more than meets the eyes? Because once we remember that, it becomes a little bit easier to go through the challenges. It becomes a little bit easier to go back, to return to where we are, to our true essence. And that is another beautiful symbolism of this parable, is this return back home. How long will it take, my friends, for us collectively to make this decision to return to the things that matter, not just to the shiny things that speak to our eyes? How long are we going to dwell in that far and distant land, individually and also collectively? It is up to us to decide how we are going to handle these difficult times, how we are going to handle all these changes that are taking place in the world, and in so doing, contribute to the betterment of society. So I hope that we don't make an effort to just go back to the way things are, because I think we can agree that while that was safe from a physical perspective, it wasn't necessarily safe from an emotional or spiritual perspective. And so as we make our way back internally into our minds and hearts, and remind ourselves of us being immortal spirits, how does the world around us change? That's a really powerful awareness, because if you think about it, and I was thinking about it the other day, friends, and I'm ashamed to say in a little bit of ways that I think I might spend more time brushing my teeth every day than thinking about myself as a spiritual being. The world beckons in so many different ways that we just forget. So what do we do? How can we remind ourselves that we are these heirs of God, that we are going to survive and outlast this pandemic physically or spiritually, that we need to continue to work on our movement forward? That's a great question for us. And as we look into these different phases of the prodigal son, I think it's interesting for us to also try to figure it out. Where are we? Do these apply to us? And I think that we can also agree that maybe this also applies to us collectively as a society. Maybe as a society, we have moved away from the farm. We are in this distant land. We have been hungering for a while to find purpose and meaning. We have been feeding the pigs because we think that that's what we got to do to get enough. And nobody's helping each other. Because in this distant land, when we are just thinking about material things, nobody helps each other, because we all think that if I give you something, then I don't have enough. But that's not it at all. That's not how it works. So is it time, friends, to come back to ourselves? Is the pandemic giving us an opportunity to think about how can we come back as a society in general? So these are some of the questions that we leave out in the open. And I think what we also want to do here, if we are to really think about this pandemic, is to really think about who we are in this parable, because I think most of us make this assumption that we're the prodigal son, and we might be the prodigal son. And here's why I bring this beautiful painting that I had a chance to see in St. Petersburg. Here's by Rembrandt, The Return of the Prodigal Son. And I think you can see it here on the right side. And the prodigal son is all in tatters. He's not great. He doesn't have shoes on. He's dirty. And here is the father, and here's the brother, and the servants, and everybody looking. And I think it's a beautiful visual representation of the parable, because it helps us think about the return. If you were to zoom in here a little bit, and I don't know if you can. I'm going to try, see if I can zoom in here. Yeah, here we go. It works. You might notice that the two hands of the father are actually a little bit different. One is a little bit more feminine and a little bit more masculine. I think Rembrandt did really great here to remind us that God is not masculine. It has both feminine and masculine in it. So when we say father, when we say he is in God, please know that what we really mean is a being, or I don't know, maybe we can't even call God a being, but God is not material, and it's not male or female. But we see the love that's present here from us. I think we can also see here in this painting. Here's the brother on the side, right? And I find this a fascinating piece, because the brother is so often overlooked. We might want to talk a little bit about the brother. He doesn't look very happy there on that face, right? I think you can tell that. And I think that we forget to think about the brother, because, the brother is not happy. His brother has returned, and he's clearly not happy because he thought that his brother has been wasting money and time and all these things. And that might be so. But once we look at the parable, we also know in the beginning that the father split the inheritance, split his estate into his brother. So his older brother, the one that's not too happy, has also received his inheritance. So why is it that he's not happy with the return of his other brother? To a point that he even tells his father, the language he uses is, this son of yours has returned. He doesn't even say, my brother has returned. And I think that shows that he's also not emotionally attached to the brother. They're not brothers in emotion. So I wonder if in many different ways, we're also not that older brother in this time and place and in this society. I wonder if we're also missing the opportunity to see that even those who are struggling and need more help are still our brothers and still deserve that. That even if we have been working here and we feel that people are squandering their lives over there, they're still deserving of love and affection. And that we have also already gotten our inheritance. Because remember, the Father has already given us. You see, for me, the older brother may not have gone to that distant land geographically, but he went to it emotionally. He's also worried about being better than his brother than just being. That's why I think he's bothered by his comeback. Because he's saying, you've given him this food, this party, but you had never given me anything to do, my friends. You see, it's not enough for them to be the same thing. He can't be happy for others. For him to be happy, he has to feel like he's more than his brother. And when his father comes and accepts his brother back, he has a problem with that, because he's also in his mind living in that distant land, because he hasn't learned yet that there is enough for everyone. He has forgotten about his spiritual essence too, even if he has stayed there at the farm. And so in many different ways, I think that in this parable, we are also the older brother. We're not just a younger brother. But I also want to invite us to think that we can also be the father. We can also be that character, that role that welcomes others when they are making their way back into the road. Remember how the father sees the son at a distance because it's always looking. And then when the son is returning, the father goes to him. And that's a beautiful symbolism. The father could very well sit and wait and say, you come back here. You've done all the right things. You make all the way back. But the father is so loving that when the father sees the son all dirty and hurting at a distance, he goes towards him to find him and help him. We too can be that person. We can take our place in our society in that way. We can help others who are not doing as well. We can accept them. We can embrace them. Because there is enough for everybody. There really is. And I think that's an important question that we may want to ask ourselves too, is who we are in the story. But more importantly, I think we also want to ask, what we will do from here on? How are we going to prepare to make our way back into this new society that we are building together as part of COVID and beyond? What are the choices that we are going to make sure that we are not lost in the distant land, that we are not talking down to people who may be making their way back, that we can also be the father in that story? How can we be more accepting of ourselves and others? I think that's a question of the moment. I think that is a beautiful reminder this parable can give us, and so many more. We can speak for it for months, really. But there's so many wonderful things that we can talk about. And I think a good reminder here is for us to go back to the end of the story. When the father says to the older brother, son or daughter, remember, it's not about gender here. You are an immortal spirit. You are always with me, and everything I have is yours. What a beautiful and powerful awareness. It is for us to remind ourselves that we are immortal spirits and that none of this physical stuff really matters as much as we think it does. And that we already have everything we need, and we will have everything we need. Because as immortal spirits, we'll be able to have as many experiences as we need to be happy. And that God would always be with us, no matter how far we are from the farm. No matter how far we stray from that which we should be or think we ought to be, God is always lovingly accepting us and waiting us to return back to our senses. And when that happens, when we put some effort along the way, He comes to our help, even if we are not there just yet. The good spirits also come to help us and assist us when we put our steps, our feet forward to make the way back to that which is most important to us. And that's why we have to celebrate this happy day For your brother was dead and he has come back to life. He was lost, but now he's found. And I wonder if we can say the same thing about ourselves too, my friends. I wonder if we can also say, I got myself a little bit lost there for a second. I was worried about just the things of the physical body, but now I remember that I am an immortal being that has lived many lives and will live many lives after. That I will outlast any of the challenges I face in this life, because I know that God is always with me. Even if the solution to my problems are not the ones I want or really wish for, I know that there is a way out of all troubles, and that there is a bond of commonality between us, that we do have brothers and sisters, that we can help each other as we make our way back home. And that's a really important thing for us to consider, because as we think about COVID, maybe we are reminded of this wonderful story. Maybe we are reminded of this message in a bottle that comes through time from Jesus to us, to understand that we're all in this movement. We're all in this story of the lost son. We're all trying to return to the best that we can. And I think this message, it's a really important one, especially in this day and age, as we are making sense of how to return. How do we reopen our economy? How do we return to social life, right, in the way that we had before? I think there are important lessons there for us to consider. How can we change ourselves so we are not the prodigal son that's still in the distant land, so that we are not the older brother that's still looking down on anybody who's coming back home? Hopefully, we feel in our hearts the desire to be more like that father that's welcoming back. And I hope that we have a chance to digest the parable. To maybe you can go and reflect. And of course, I would always love to keep in touch. And if you want to share your thoughts, you can always find me on social media. I'm very creative. All my handles are Dan Assisi. So it's really easy. But I'm excited to be here with you. And I hope that you can carry the prodigal son, the older brother, and the father with you. And this week, and think about what is it that you can do to make it the way back home for all of us better. And then we can pause right there, my friend Stevan, if that's okay, and see if folks have any comments or if I have put everybody to sleep.
I have a comment here. Remember when I said I have some slap in the face? Let me read a thing here. It's on page 117, lesson 4, the temporary blindness. And say, the author here, I don't know, said here, at times we forget we can still move ahead while we are working on weaving a new understanding of the world and ourselves. Whether we go full throttle or turtle, speed while adjusting to our blindness, the important part is to still go. So,
that's one of the many lessons that Paul gives us. And I think the prodigal son tells us that too, right, Stevan?
Yes. Exactly. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your wise words, always touching.
Oh, my friend, it's so nice for you to say that. But the truth is, these words are from our older brother, right?
Yeah.
Jesus is leaving us with his crumbs, right? This different things. And we see that beauty and wisdom reflected everywhere we look. If we have eyes to see, we see that in the lives of Paul, like we did analysis in the book. You see that in the prodigal son. You're seeing so many wonderful people who are making their way back.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's very inspiring. And I hope that it gives us that fuel to change ourselves, because it's possible. It is possible. And I think that's a beautiful message, right?
The most important thing is still go on.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what happened.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what happened. Still go on. And here we have here nice comments. Leah says, I cry happy tears. Thank you, Dan, so much.
Thank you, Leah, for being here with us. I love that we have a chance to share our emotions and our thoughts, even digitally, right? Our friends from Ireland here, our Irish friends. And Stevan, thank you for making the space for us to come together and be together. And isn't that a lesson in itself, that we can be together in thought and in heart, even when we're not physically present? I think there's a lesson in there too.
Yeah. And Gabrielle says, I haven't slept at all. How come with this blasted talking? Thanks both for your time.
Thank you, my friend.
And Nady, great speech, Dan. Always make us think about our behavior and actions. Think a lot.
Right, Nady. Right, Gabriel. I think that's the goal here. I mean, these stories come alive, right? These stories that we heard from the Christ, they can come alive in our minds if we just sit a little bit with them and think about them. How would it be to be that prodigal son? How would you feel if you were the older brother, right? So what does it mean to us? What does it really look like? These are stories of people.
Mm-hmm.
People like you and me. They just happen to be in a different part of the world than the one that maybe we were born in. And they just happen to have lived many years in that life, right? Before the life that we have now. But their lessons are eternal.
Yeah, I would say we act as is convenient for us. If convenient to be old brother, we act as an old brother. When it's convenient to be the prodigal son, we act as the prodigal son. So we don't stick with the rules, and we fight our own shadows, and instead we just keeping moving around and see, okay, this is better for me, this is better.
Beautifully said, my friend. I think you nailed it, right? And I think that we are in that distant land most of the time, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something for us to think about.
Yeah, Lea also said, gave me the feels, food for my soul, good stuff. Vanderlei, then we can say that both brothers were lost, but each one of them in different ways. But both should learn something from this situation. Oh, it's a kind of a question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, my friend Vanderlei, Mr. W, you're absolutely right. I take the same thing out of this one. And you know how in the story, the father goes to meet the younger brother halfway, sort of like when he's coming back home. I think that, if we had more time, we can kind of spend time here. But when there is a party for the younger brother, remember how the other brother doesn't go in there? The story tells us he waits outside. Notice how the father also comes out to meet him where he is. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, the father goes to him, not he comes to the father.
Correctly, because he's pouting, right? He's saying, I'm not going to go in there. No, I'm better than that. That's ridiculous, right? And the father goes to him, and you can see how beautiful that is. The father has gone to both sons.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? So yes, I think that the son is also lost. So sometimes I wonder if we're also not that older brother where we think we're doing everything, but our heart is not just in the right place just yet. And listen, this is no judgment here, right? We're not judging the older brother. We're not judging the younger brother. We are just empathizing and saying, maybe that could be us. And I wonder if I know for a fact that in certain moments, I have that older brother mentality and attitude. And also, in some moments, I pass judgment on different people, and I think I'm better than them, and I deserve more than them. And then I am reminded of the story, and I say, aha, right? Nobody wins until everybody wins. There is enough for everybody. And I think that's an important thing that we lose a little bit in our society nowadays, because there is this assumption that, hey, if I be nice to you, if I help you, then I am losing my spot or I'm losing an opportunity, right? And I'm not quite sure that that's the message that the parable brings us, right?
Yeah. Okay, so our time is up, my friend. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us. Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for connect with us just after your holidays. I hope you have recovered, recharged your batteries, and let's go for the second or third round. And thank you again for being here with us. And I don't take too long to come back.
Thank you for helping me, friends. And I think I always say this: Spiritism has given me a new understanding on how to look at life and think about spirituality, but has also given me wonderful friends, such as yourself, brother from another mother, and many other people who are commenting here as well, right? I had a pleasure of meeting Don many times in person in Chicago, right? I had a pleasure of also meeting Vanderlei in person, right? So, I mean, it's just wonderful. And I think that it's a beautiful thing that we can become a bigger and greater family. So thank you for making the space. Thank you for having me. And I hope that we get to see each other soon.
Don's talking. I have a last minute question here, reflection here, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I mean the prodigal son, does it happen when we do something out of spiritism? I mean, I'm going to give food to homeless people here in São Paulo, but my wife and I are doing it with a group of people from another center, Umbanda, another center. Umbanda, is there any problem? Oh, no. He goes with the people with the Umbanda doing this. Yep. This charity, yeah, and asking if there's any problem.
Not at all, my friend. Not at all. The important thing is that we go out and do things, right? I'm not sure that God really cares which shirt are we wearing when we're doing good. And I'm not sure that people who are getting that food or that help really care, like whether you're dressed in blue or in black that day, right? And for those that might not be familiar, Umbanda is a African-rooted religion that's also very popular in Brazil. And I mean, we all work from the same boss, right? Exactly. And, you know, I don't know if you guys had the commercial, but there's some Toyota commercials for the Olympics. And in one of them, this girl says something which I think was really great. She says, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great." And I thought that was really great. Like it stuck with me, right? Because sometimes we feel like we can only do good in a specific way. We have to wait for all these conditions to change, which, you know, when you were reading that passage from that wonderful book, Mr. Stevan, I was thinking about that sentence, right? Like sometimes I think we just freeze ourselves a little bit and say, I'm only going to do that when. But go help people. Doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Just answer the question here. Beatriz Sena is asking if the Spiritual Society of Ireland is open. Unfortunately not, my dear. We still have the restrictions here, especially the location we have our meetings, they are closed. I also checked yesterday, they are still closed. They have no idea when they will reopen. I hope this is it's going to happen in the near future. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, you can watch our lives every Tuesday and every Thursday at 7:15 p.m. Here in Ireland. Also on Wednesday, we do have our study group. If you want to be part of this group, just send an email. Let me put it here to Nate, spiritismireland@gmail.com, and she will send you the link to join this group. And on Sunday, also 11:15, we do have our open talk, which is alive as well. Okay, so once we are back live, I can wait for this. I'm missing see you all, and I'll let you know. And we're gonna
and Beatrice,
a great party. You know?
Yeah, and if I may jump in here, Stevan, and be really rude, since I'm part of the group already. You told me. Beatrice, you are receiving spiritual passes when you are listening to these lives, right? The vibrations that are coming, that you're tuning yourself into, I already helping you. So don't be worried if you can't go to the society to receive passes. You can just pray at home, open your heart, and as you're listening to enlightening things and immersing yourself in this atmosphere, you are receiving those benefits, right? So you're going to be okay.
And we have our dear friend from Elsa. Dan, our friend here. Thank
Elsa,
you.
our incredible Elsa, we are honored that you're here with us, Elsa, and I hope to see you soon in person.
Good.
Somehow.
Dan, would you mind to do a final prayer for us?
With pleasure, my friend. Thank you for having me. So in that sense, we make some space in our hearts to lift up our minds in gratitude for everything that we have, even if we are struggling right now. Because the truth is, all of us are struggling somehow. All of us are going through something hard in our lives. It may be different, but we all have pains and anxieties and challenges, and that's okay, because that's how we grow. And so we take this moment to be grateful to those who have gone before us and have shown us the way on how to navigate back to our God, to our Father, to our spirituality, to whatever name you want to use there. And we reflect today, if we are not also on the same journey that our prodigal son has been on, and whether we also don't have moments of being that older brother who's still more worried about what others are going to think of us, or whether we are better than other people. So we ask God, please continue to give us the opportunities for us to remember that we are immortal spirits and that all of those around us are immortal spirits too. And in so doing, give us the strength to be more forgiving, more merciful towards others and towards ourselves, to accept people as they are, to remind ourselves that we're all growing, we're all changing, we're all on this road back to this farm. Thank you for being with us at all times, our spiritual guides and mentors. Thank you for giving us each other and a way of connecting, even if we are oceans apart. Thank you for all that we have. So be it.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'll see you next Thursday. Have a blessed day, a blessed week. Take care of yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye.